Hey there, it's Ozzy Lopez with Keller Williams Realty, and in this video, we're gonna go over the pros and cons of refinancing, and also what is that, and um, my personal opinion. Because when it comes to refinancing, I'm not a lender, so I'm not incentivized whether you get one or not. I don't make money if you refinance or not. As a real estate agent, I help people sell their house, their properties, or I help people buy a property with a loan or with cash. So that's where I make my money, not with financing. So you're getting it from a perspective that's a little bit more neutral and unbiased, as if you were to watch this from somebody that is incentivized if you get a refinance, right? Like a lender or like your lender. So let's get straight to it. I'm gonna share my screen right here and show you some of my notes. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of refinancing. Now, I got this from ChatGPT, and I said, what can you tell me about it?" And he said, "Well, these are the pros and these are the cons." I go, "Great." And believe it or not, ChatGPT is factually correct, but it's incorrect in some instances. And right now, I'm going to go over how ChatGPT is correct on number one and number two: lower interest rates and monthly payment reduction. It's true that can be a pro, but more than likely, it's probably not a pro for you watching, and I'll tell you why. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Let me go ahead and grab my whiteboard. All right. So, what's been happening over time is that, let's say this was in 2010, then this was in 2015, and let's say this is now 2022. And now we're in 2025 over here, right? So this line represents interest rates. And for the last almost decade, interest rates were at what? 3 to maybe 4%. Super juicy, delicious interest rates for almost a decade. Um, but lately, for the last two, maybe going on almost 3 years, we've been hovering around what? 6 to 7% interest rates. So this exact reason right here, let me share my screen, is why getting a lower interest rate is not a pro in this market, because if you bought a house during this time and you have a rate like this, then it wouldn't you wouldn't be getting a lower interest rate. If you refinance right now, the rates are almost 7%. You would be getting a higher interest rate. And when you get a higher interest rate, you get a higher monthly payment. So therefore, number two is also debunked. See how ChatGPT could be right, but it's not, just because historically it doesn't, for most 95, 98% of people, it just doesn't apply. The only way that number one and number two would apply is if you had an interest rate higher than this. Let's say 8%. Then if you refinance, you would be lowering it, right? From 8 to 7 or from 8 to 6. And then your monthly payment would, of course, be going down. But that's basically m- how number one and number two is factually a pro, yes, but for this market, not yet. Let's go on to the next one, which is access to home equity. Access to home equity. So, how does that work? How can I refinance and get access to home equity? Well, let me show you. If you have a house right here that is worth, ooh, I like my drawing. Look at that. Boom. If you have a house that's worth 400,000, let's put right here 400,000. So that's the value, right? Let me stop sharing my screen so that you can see. The equity is how much you owe free and clear. So if you have a mortgage of, let's say, 350, if your mortgage is 350, that means you only have $50,000 in equity, because that you still got to pay back. And as you're paying that off throughout the years, as you're paying every month and throughout the years, you're paying down your mortgage, that gets smaller. That balance goes down to 320, 300, and eventually it's just going to get smaller and smaller, right? And as it gets smaller, you get more equity. So like let's say your mortgage balance is now 250. That's your balance right there, your mortgage balance. What that means is you now have equity of $150,000 between what it's worth and how much you have left to pay off, because free and clear, you have $150,000 worth of equity. So when you have, how do you access that? How do you access that? Well, you basically got to tell your lender, hey, I still owe you 250, right, lender? But if we replace this old loan with a new loan, you're basically starting over. You're going to start over, let's say, so this is your current old loan, and let's say you now refinance, and you start the loan all over again. And let's say you decide to start all over at 300. Okay, the bank is now going to start the term of the loan all over again. So if you had a 30-year loan and you've been paying this off for a few years, great. You've made a lot of progress, but when you refinance, you're starting again at another 30 years or whatever term you might have, 15 years, whatever. But because they gave you this new loan and replaced it with that loan, you now were able to get $50,000. The bank will literally wire you $50,000 because they just let you borrow that to restart a new loan. Does that make sense? That I explained it good? So that's how you can get access to your equity. That's how you can literally grab some of the funds from the equity is by refinancing for a higher loan than the bank gives you the difference. Be careful though here. Why? When you do this, what I've seen is a lot of people misuse this and they end up using it in a financially illiterate manner. For example, they might go to the car dealership and buy a brand new car, or they might go on a vacation, 5-star, high ticket item that's basically not going to build you wealth. It's just something you're going to spend, and whatever you spent it on, it's a liability. It doesn't build you wealth. So you got to be careful. Why? Because this thing right here, this house, did build you wealth, right? It's giving you equity and it's building you wealth. Even with time, this value is going to go up. In 10 years, this house is going to be worth way more. In 20 years, this house is going to be worth way more. So this right here is building you wealth. And when you take money out and spend it on things that don't make you wealth, you're now sinking your, what's the word? Your basically you're sinking your opportunity to keep building wealth. It's like you're digging yourself into a hole. One of the best rules of thumb when it comes to building wealth through real estate is keep real estate money in real estate. So if you do pull this out, some of the best things that you can do is to reinvest that into other real estate. Grab this $50,000 and buy a second property and rent that out. Now you have two pieces of property and that other one's being rented out. So the tenant's now paying for that loan. Another way you can keep real estate money real estate is by grabbing that money and maybe improving that one by adding another bedroom or a casita in the back, right? So to build wealth, keep real estate money. And that's a tried and true rule of thumb. So let's finish up this video by then going through the other one. So elimination of mortgage insurance. That's actually a true pro right there. If you have a really big loan because you had to put originally less than 20% down, if you put like 3.5%, 5%, maybe 10%, 15, anything under 20%, you automatically got mortgage insurance. Your bank, your lender automatically put that in there for you. The only way that can ever come off that little mortgage insurance fee is if you refinance or you ask the lender to take that off because your equity is now more than 20%. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because there's still a lot of information out there on that. And call me or I can go over that in another more full length video. But that is a pro, and that's only if you A, put down a small down payment when you originally bought the house, and B, you now have more than 20% equity that you can ask the bank to take that mortgage insurance fee off. Cons, closing cost. So refinancing is not free. Refinancing actually costs 2 to maybe 6% of the new loan. So if you refinance for this 300, if you ask the bank, hey, I know that I had a balance of 350 on my own loan, but can you refinance to 300 so I can pull out 50K? Remember this example? Well, what is 2 to 6% of this? That's 6,000 to $18,000. The bank's gonna charge you anywhere between 6 to $18,000 just for you to get this money. That's a lot. So be careful with refinancing. The numbers have to work for you because it is a cost and it's not a low one. Next one, potential short-term rate fluctuations. This one's I'm not too worried about because um, rates are steady right now as of recording of this video. And if rates do fluctuate, the only bad thing about that is if you lock in a rate, you refinance, you lock in a rate, the the worst thing that can happen is next week, next month, the rate was a little lower, and you're just gonna say, ah, I should have waited a little bit more. But how do you know? You can't predict the future. So number two is kind of like a, okay, what if in the short term the rate does fluctuate and it goes down a little bit? Ah, I wish I would have known. Everybody wish, but we can't predict the future. So there's not much you can do with number two. It's just it's just the nature of the beast. Markets do fluctuate. Next one, extended loan term. This is a con. One of the things that I do hate about refinancing is if you've been paying off your current loan, let's say your original old mortgage, you got it 10 years ago and it was a 30-year fixed, then you've already been paying it off for 10 whole years. That you only have 20 years left. Oh my gosh. If you refinance, you're going to have another 30 years to pay it off. How about you accelerate it and shorten those 20 years that are left and maybe try to pay it off in 7 years so you can have a paid off house? That would be awesome. So, extending your loan term to me is a true con. Last one, home appraisal risks. This is actually very low risk. It's not really a true con in my eyes. It's just basically saying that the lender, if they appraise it, it might not appraise. Well, the only thing that you're going to lose is just the appraisal money. It costs like $500 to appraise it, but I'm not worried about that because in this market, values are steady, so homes are appraising as of recording of this video. In a different market, that might be a risk, but not in this market. See, there you go. That's how ChatGPT is sometimes right, and sometimes they're right, but it doesn't apply to our city, our market, our situation. So I'm hoping a lot of these little nuances that I kind of gave you here make sense. To close out, I will say refinancing is not bad. It's just you want to always look to see if the numbers work in your favor. Every number. Number one, the monthly payment. Number two, the interest rate. Number three, the loan term being extended or you're starting that all over again. Um, versus number four, paying off the property maybe a little bit faster. The only reason why is because of this. Look, when you get a loan on a house, this right here represents the loan, like how high of a loan you got. And this right here represents time, right? Well, when you buy a house at this time, let's put buy. When you buy a house, you usually start with a high loan. And what happens with time and payments and years is that what? Your balance, your mortgage balance goes down with years, right? This is year one, this is year 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. So in 30 years, your debt is going to be so small. But look at this. In the first 10 years, holy crap, the majority of this is going towards interest rate. The majority of this in the last 5 years is going towards interest rate. I mean, your principal. So just know for a fact that whenever you start a loan all over again, The first 10 years, most of it goes towards interest. Very little, very little goes towards principal. But once you get over here, most of it on the last 10 to 5 years, most of it starts going towards principal and not so much towards interest. That's why I hate restarting it all over again, just because it benefits the bank. Whenever you restart a loan, for the first 10 years, they're going to get so much interest. So that's why you keep receiving letters in the mail, emails in your inbox, text messages, calls from your lender asking, would you like to refinance? Would you like to refinance? Even though it might not be the best thing for you, that's why you keep getting asked by the banks, would you like to refinance? Because they make a lot of money when you do. You, though, because you know that refinancing is not bad, you just need to make sure that refinancing is smart for you at this time and with the numbers they're presenting to you. So ask the lender for an estimate. It's also called a good faith estimate. I think it's a GFE, a good faith estimate. Ask your lender for an estimate on the numbers and just say, if I were to refinance right now, what would my numbers look like? What would my terms look like? And just look at those numbers and make some very savvy financial decisions. Maybe have one or two other financially smart people, a rich aunt, a wealthy neighbor or something. Ask them, hey, what do you think? A second or third pair of eyes never hurts. Maybe from your financial advisor or maybe from anybody that's an investor in your social circle. Ask them. But if the numbers work for you, then refinancing might be great. And if they don't, then refinancing might not be great for you. Thank you for watching this video. Hope that answers all your questions about refinancing. If you still have any questions, call me. If you need a recommendation or a referral to a good lender, still call me because I know some good ones. I know a lot of good ones that I can refer you to that are trusted and they will give you solid advice any time of the day. Talk to you soon. Have a great one. Bye bye.